Hello, welcome to Old Nerd Reads His Marvel Comics in Order, episode 134. This time I read Amazing Spider-Man 168. This is the May 1977 issue. This is part 2 of the Will-O-The-Wisp story and Spider Slayer. This was the first appearance of Will-O-The-Wisp last issue, I believe, or maybe he had a cameo in the one before that. Great Ed Hannigan cover. Ed Hannigan did some really cool spectacular Spider-Man covers in the late 70s, early 80s, I think. And he did some really cool Batman covers as well. He has this forced perspective thing going on, and he always seemed to use like actual billboards for his backdrops in the city. So this is a really great cover. John Romita inked it, but this is an Ed Hannigan. I think this might be Ed Hannigan's first Amazing Spider-Man cover. But we have our usual creative team here. Len Wein, Ross Andru, Mike Esposito, Glennis Wein, Joe Rosen, and Irv Forbush, the referee. I think Len Wein edits. Yeah, Len Wein edits himself, so Irv Forbush just supervises, although his duties are largely ceremonial at this point, I suspect. I was reading mycomicshop.com listing on this issue, and I guess Ross Andru kind of roughed this one, and Mike Esposito was more like a finisher this time instead of just an inker. And you can tell, you can see it's not quite as tight throughout with the pencils and spots, and I'll try and point it out when I see it. I do like how they depict Will-O-The-Wisp with kind of not solid outlines, because he's kind of ethereal. He can what is it called when Shadowcat from the X-Men dematerialize into thin air? So he's a wisp. He's there and he's not. We have a pretty good fight here between Will-O-The-Wisp and J. Jonah Jameson as the third Spider Slayer. This one's just a remote. Jonah's not inside it. Just has these TV screens on top of the head. Kind of like Captain America's new villain. I just did the video for Captain America 209 with Arnim Zola. And he's got that video screen in the middle of his chest that shows his face. I'll try and put a link to that video right around here, so you can check that out if you haven't already. Yeah, they just had this great fight on the ice rink at Rockefeller Center in New York City. And basically it comes down to Will-O-The-Wisp versus the Spider Slayer, but then Will-O-The-Wisp just dematerializes, and now it's Spidey versus the Spider Slayer. And of course, Spider-Man makes a monkey out of Jonah pretty quickly. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep my eyes open for some of those spots where the art was a little off, in my opinion. Like this right here, that seems a little weak. That depiction of Jonah, not quite up to Ross Andru's standards, but maybe. It's just there's spots here and there. I'll try and point some of them out, because Ross Andru is kind of famous for depicting real life sites in New York City in this comic. Let me go to the letters page real quick. There's a couple interesting things on the letters page, but this first letter mentions that Ross Andru's trip to the Navy shipyards in New York City paid off real well in the Kingpin story arc from a few issues back, because he drew that so well. And this was interesting too. Here's a letter from comic book writer Gerard Jones in 1977. He would have been about 20 years old at this time. But he went on in the 80s to write Green Lantern and the Justice League, or the Justice League of America, I think. He did some. He worked in comics quite a bit. Unfortunately, he got in trouble for getting caught with some questionable materials on his computer several years ago now. But yeah, I thought that was kind of neat that he had a letter in here. I wasn't sure that it was him. I saw Gerard Jones. I was like, I wonder if that's the comic book writer. And sure enough, that's who it was. But anyway, see, some of this just does not look up to Ross Andru's usual high mark of artistry. But this is back in Peter Parker's apartment. I love this era when he had this dingy apartment. He went in through the skylight into the bathroom. He had his crappy couch. I love this era of Spider-Man. It lasted for several years, into the 80s, into at least through the first half of the 80s. He was in that apartment, I think. But we have this character right here. What is his name? Is Dr. He's shown up in, like, last showed up in Amazing Spider-Man 144 and 126. What the heck is his name? I can't see. Jonas Harrow. That's it. And I'm not exactly sure what his story is. It's kind of a cool look, though. I guess he's just kind of a thug, mad scientist kind of doctor. But anyway, he's in control of Will-O-The-Wisp, and he's forcing Will-O-The-Wisp to do his bidding, steal these things. And so that's what Will-O-The-Wisp isn't really a bad guy. He's just being controlled by this Dr. Jonas Harrow. Anyway, back in Spidey's, Peter Parker's pad, he's using a little closet as a dark room, and comes out. Mary Jane's there, and they get cozy together. And later, Spidey's back out on the web, and runs into Will-O-The-Wisp again for their round 2 this issue. And some of this, I don't know, some of the renderings of the faces especially just make me feel like Ross Andru kind of did a quickie on this issue, and Mike Esposito had to do a lot of finishing. But anyway, we're right in Times Square, big fight. Dr. Jonas Harrow shows up in the crowd below. He's controlling Will-O-The-Wisp. It's some really cool, again, Ross Andru doing actual sights from New York City as backdrops, and just knocks it out of the park, I think. The more, if you have watched me for a while, if you've seen any of my other Old Nerd Reads His Marvel Comics in Order, where I do Amazing Spider-Man over the last few issues of this title, each episode I'm gushing over Ross Andru's art. But it comes right down to Will-O-The-Wisp kind of has a crisis of conscience. Right here, he's going to electrocute Spidey. He touches one hand into this neon sign and the other hand on Spidey and starts barbecuing him. And Jonas Harrow is forcing him to do it. So Will-O-The-Wisp, he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. He has to kill Spider-Man and lose his humanity for committing murder, or he has to lose his humanity and just become a pawn of Dr. Jonas Harrow. So he decides, he has a crisis of conscience, decides he can't kill Spider-Man. He dives to the street to attack Harrow and immediately dematerializes and disappears. And Harrow just kind of wanders off anonymously. But that's the end of this one. Next issue, we're going to have a little bit of a showdown between J. Jonah Jameson and Peter Parker. Follow up to J. Jonah Jameson's humiliating defeat as the Spider Slayer in this issue. He finally beats him by dropping this statue of Prometheus on top of him and pinning him there. So Jonah, he's embarrassed because now he's going to have to explain to the cops what happened, and he's going to have to pay for all the damages to Madison Square Garden. Or wait, is that the name? That's not the name of this place, is it? This place in New York City, Rockefeller Center. He's going to have to pay for the damages he just caused in Rockefeller Center. So him and Spidey are going to have a reckoning next issue. But that's Amazing Spider-Man 168, another great issue. Len Wein and Ross Andru and Mike Esposito are a fantastic team on this title. This is so cool to me because for most of my life, comics back in the 1977, 76, when I started doing these, when I was a kid in the 80s is when I started reading. So like around 84, 85. So these comics that were 8 years prior to that, they were ancient history to me, and I never really gave them much thought. Every once in a while, you'd see an asterisk in a panel referring back to a comic from this time when you were reading current ones, but I never really gave it much attention. And I'm very pleasantly surprised going back now and reading these and finding how much I enjoy them, how good they are, how well done they are. I'm very happy with The Amazing Spider-Man. I think that's probably my favorite title right now, next to maybe Conan the Barbarian. Anyway, anybody else out there a big Amazing Spider-Man fan from the Bronze Age? Let me know. Or share this video with another old nerd like us that likes this kind of stuff. That'd help me out quite a bit. And leave me a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.